too late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV. Here we are.
Let us know if you can hear us okay. We are here for, normally it's Powernomics Thursdays. I guess today is Thursday, so I guess it is Powernomics Thursday. And as you all know, every week I get a chance to speak with the one and only Dr. Claud Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. His website is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. So everybody who's coming in, please hit the thumbs up button and give a digital welcome to the one and only Dr. Claud Anderson. How you doing today, Dr. Anderson?
Oh, I'm hanging in there, and as I say, for a poor black man, and is outrunning the Ku Klux Klan.
But well, you the man with the plan. The man with the plan outrunning the Klan. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Well, everybody, as you come in, I want to say hello to everybody on Instagram. Also, Instagram is The Real Boyce Watkins. Follow us on Instagram. And don't forget Dr. Claud Anderson's website where his books can be found is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. So, Dr. Anderson, I'm going to jump right into it. So, recently, the internet's really been chatting a lot about this whole thing with this virus and its extraordinary impact on Black people and issues in terms of health disparities, health challenges for Black folks, some of the things that our people are going through. Can you speak to this? Because you know the history of this very, very well. What are you seeing when you hear people talk about Black folks dying from the virus more than everybody else and all the other things that are going on?
Well, I see it with mixed emotion, Dr. Watkins. First of all, on one side, I see it as being a self-congratulation, the fact that I predicted all these things for the last 50 or 60 years that they were coming to Black folk. And I tried to, and so I have some satisfaction on hitting the nails on the head all the time, I guess by either by nature or by God's blessings and gifts and vision that I tried to share with Black folk. So therefore, I'm proud to say that I've talked about that, about the virus coming for the longest. As a matter of fact, pull it up 1 second. I put out 2 newsletters on that, on the Harvest Institute. You probably won't be able to see it on this thing, for the winter of 2006. And see the headlines up there, top right across there. I know that you can't read that, but I'll put, can you see that? What does that say at the top?
I see medical alert.
Okay, and what it's talking about is a whole big article, whole big, this thing is about a 19-page newsletter saying basically that medical diseases is going to come to Black folk and come into the city. That I've always told Black folk that when they hit this country, that white folk are going to catch it. They're going to get pneumonia. I mean, catch a cold, but Black folk are going to get pneumonia out of it. Whatever impacts the broader society is going to be 5 times or 6 times greater when it comes down the line, because everything is vertically ordered, and Black folk are on the bottom of the barrel. So when white folks get this virus, and in terms of contracting it, Black folk are going to contract it with more Blacks, 6 Blacks going to contract and die from the virus versus every one for whites to get it and die. It's going to visit the Black community, but Black folk are totally ill prepared to deal with it, and that's why all my books talked about that. They don't have any of the things they need to be able to deal with. First of all, they don't have communities, and without communities, they only have is vacant, porous neighborhoods where anything can come in and out. They have no food supply services in there. They have no no medical supplies in there. They have no drug stores. They have no grocery stores, supermarkets. They have no means to be able to survive sufficiently in those neighborhoods, and therefore they're going to die from it. And what whites are going to try to do in reverse is always flip things in reverse and start putting out misinformation, saying, well, Black folk are immune to the virus, so they're not going to be impacted at all. They'll put that out. But Black folk are going to be more seriously damaged than everybody because they're all congested. 70%, Dr. Watkins, 70% of all the Black people in America, you got 46 million. So you figure out of 46 million, what 70% would come to, and they all live in and around 10 large metropolitan cities. That's where the disease is going to hit, starting with New York and go all across the country. You're going to see them hit New York, then they hit New Orleans, where there's, again, a predominantly black area. Then they hit Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, St. Louis. They're going to tear these places up. And that's where blacks are congregated. And blacks are going to get wiped out because they're ill prepared. And again, they focus all their time on talking about civil rights and enjoying the fruits of a social illusion that somehow they are progressing with civil rights. And minister and black ministers always talking about how far we've come, how black folk have progressed. And I'm telling you that black folk have not progressed one iota since 1860 on the eve of the Civil War. As a matter of fact, they're going backwards. They're more ill prepared today than they were ever in history. And that's, as a matter of fact, back in 1920s, I had and per 100,000 blacks, I had 20 times more black businesses in 1920 you got today. And those black businesses could provide some service to black folk in terms of food. Where are black folk going to get food from? Where are they going to get water from? And we'll talk about that too, because what has happened is that the four horses of the apocalypse has come into this country. And I'm sure you're aware of the four horses of the apocalypse from Revelation. That's in John 6-1. That's what's going to visit this country. You got all these white historians debating whether the apocalypse is ever going to come to the earth or whether it's going to come to America. It has been here already. It's been here always back to the 1950s. And we can talk about that if you want to later on. Black folk are going to be wiped out unless they start practicing group economics and group politics, even though it might be a little too late now to do it.
Everybody who's watching, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. He's the revealer of a lot of those dirty little secrets that are used against you. And that's one of the reasons why he is, in my opinion, the leading scholar and thinker in this country. And so do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. Also, Dr. Anderson's books are all at powernomics.com. So make sure you go to powernomics.com and do your kids a favor and introduce them to Powernomics principles at an early age. So Dr. Anderson, so you, so it sounds to me like what you're saying is this. It sounds like you're saying that a lot of the reason that we are becoming more infected than other people is because we're crammed into these urban areas, and you know, the New Yorks and the New Orleans type places and stuff like that, and also that our communities are very porous. Anybody can come in with any kind of disease that they want to wipe us out with, any kind of you know, unhealthy food,
anything. They can drop anything. They can drop the garbage in those neighborhoods at night. They're so porous. There are no restrictions on black people coming into the black communities. They're not guarded like Beverly Hills or Chinatown or a little Cuba, a little Havana, Mexican town, a Jewish town. There's no surveillance going on to stop people coming in and out of the black community. People come into black, all of them are transits. They can come into black community and black neighborhood rather today and be out tomorrow. You never know who they are. Black folk, and worst part, you hit it on the head, you got it. Excuse me, Dr. Watkins, but not only are they crammed together and aggregated together in a pot, but the worst part about it, they don't have the resources in there. That's where the civil rights movement went astray, went wrong, and never corrected the primary purpose of slavery, was to maldistribute all the resources that would be necessary for survival and competition away from black folk. The civil rights movement started after slavery ended. They did not correct, they even focused on it. Started talking about, well, we should all be together. We should be aggregating, not social distancing, we should be aggregated. And the only time in the history of this nation where black folk progressed economically, Dr. Watkins, was doing Jim Crow segregation, because white folk made black folk do what they should have been doing naturally. And black folk were forced doing segregation to have some of their own business, to be independent, to be self-sufficient. They had some of the things they needed. Nowadays with integration, they don't have a damn thing. There's nothing in a black neighborhood. And every black in Chicago where you live in, or any other city, if they want some groceries, they got to get up right now and drive to a white neighborhood, a white community, and try to get it. And even then, back in doing segregation, you could find some of the professional help you needed. You had black nurses and black doctors, black engineers, black clinics, black hospitals in the black community. You haven't got a damn thing in a black neighborhood now. So how are you going to compete? You're aggregated together with nothing. Now, I mean, you got to be suicidal, put yourself in that condition. But it was put together by people who were blind and couldn't see far enough down the road. They were working on a dream rather than a vision. You see, right now they all talk about, we got this dream about one day, the Martin Luther King dream, one day we are all gonna walk across the red hills of Georgia with a little black boy holding a little white girl's hand. To me, that was not a dream, that was a nightmare. And blacks went for it like a pig to slop, bought into it. And so they've been enjoying the fruits of a social illusion ever since the 1950s. That's why they got nothing, they went backwards. They got less today than they had in 1950s and 1960s. And anybody, any black person in America who's over about 50 or 60 tell you that you had more doing segregation than you got now doing so-called integration. Integration is a neutralizing, a diminishing concept and process. But black folk have not awakened to it, and now the four horses of the apocalypse is on their backs, and they got major problems, and they're gonna die. And for every white that catches contracts the virus, 6 blacks will get it. For every white person that dies, 6 blacks are gonna die. And black folk right now don't even have that many funeral homes anymore. They have funeral problems in processing bodies, because right now, whites are beginning to initiate processes in the late 1990s where some Canadians and they got together and wanted to buy out most of the black funeral homes in America. Most of the black funeral homes in America don't even owned by blacks anymore, because they found out that black folk spent more money on funerals than whites did. And so they started taking over black funeral homes and now own most about whites. They had black churches participating in it, because they were getting paid $100, $150 by every time a black member of that church died. They call a white funeral home. It is bad. It is bad, Dr. Watkins. And I mean that. I could go on and on, but I'm gonna stop right here before we go to another point.
I think that's perfect. I think it's a good transition. Everybody who just came in, do me a favor right now. First of all, let's do our B1 pledge. I want everybody that comes into this platform that's new. We've had probably 50,000 of you sign up in the last month. So I want to make sure you know what it is before you even walk through the door. In this space, we put black people first. This is a platform for intelligent black people. We put B1 in the chat. Use the hashtag B1 to let me know that you're on board with understanding that we are not white supremacists in this space. White supremacy does not live here. We put our people first. And if that offends you, then you should probably leave. So type B1 in the chat if you understand what I'm saying, if you agree with that, if that is how you think, then that way we can continue to move forward. Hit the thumbs up button, also share and subscribe. So Dr. Anderson, let's jump into this. Before we jump in on, you said something that I thought was real intriguing. You talked about the 4 horses of the apocalypse. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay them out. I took notes, just in case y'all know this, Dr. Anderson is what they call my OG. And when my OG is talking, I take notes. So I start writing stuff down. And I wrote down your 4 horses of the apocalypse, and I'm gonna mute myself and allow you to explain them. You mentioned the 4 horses are immigration, integration, technology, and globalization. That these were the 4 things that would destroy black people: immigration, integration, technology, and globalization. Can you break that down for us, please?
Okay, thank you. I would try to do that. Now, in Revelations. For centuries now, people debated what was Revelations talking about when they talked about the 4 horses of the apocalypse. That was written by John. You look at John 6.1, and it's very highly symbolic. And they would look for something much more symbolic than what I've reduced it down to as a forensic historian. And the first horse was a, excuse me, was a white horse. And the white horse really is supposed to be symbolizing some kind of a spiritualness of somebody being Christ-like, coming to the earth and wearing a crown and promoting humanity and forgiveness and caring and all this kind of stuff, and being very compassionate. That's what it was talking about. That was supposed to be the white horse in Revelation in the Bible. The next horse, the second horse, would have been a red horse. A red horse would have been when the society meant pushing back, when people push back and say, in preface of that, we're going to push back. We're going to bring about violence and death on those who try to carry out and support and identify with the white horse. The next horse was going to be a black horse in the Revelations. The black horse was talking about individuals who are going to be able, for the first time, to be able to get something and fight to be independent and have some self-sufficiency and responsibilities for their own welfare. and the pale horse, the last horse called a pale horse. The pale horse, the four apocalypse was talking about pestilence and diseases and germs and bacteria coming to the earth that was going to destroy most of mankind and wipe their butts out. So those are the four horses of the apocalypse as symbolically identified in Revelations in John 6. Now, what I try to do to try to simplify it for my people, since I've been devoted my entire life to trying to analyze these things and bring them to fruition and understanding to black folk. Now, here's what it meant now. What were the four horses of apocalypse for black folk? Well, the four horses for black folk were introduced in my estimation, like about late 1950s. That's when the four horses hit the earth. And these white historians and biblical students keep talking about, well, is it going to come? When will it come? I tell them it has come and gone. It is gone, it's past. It came in the 1950s. And how did it come? It arrived first in the 1950s. And when people like Martin Luther King was first came on the scene at that particular time, excuse me, and that time he indicated a willingness to try to address some of the issues in the society where he thought that black folk were suffering. And so and that's why after he started giving a few sermons around the country and began to get a little attention, he decided to have what's called a major march on Washington, D.C. by calling everybody to Washington, D.C. for a big march on Washington. But at that point in time, by the time he set that up, he set it up based on Lyndon Johnson's 1964 civil rights legislation. And here's where the BS and the misinformation came in. Lyndon Johnson set up this 1964 civil rights law, but here's where the gaming started. He set it up not to deal with the issues that Martin Luther King wanted to raise about black folk, about racism. He set it up based on discrimination. They had a damn thing to do with black folk. There's 50 miles difference between discrimination and racism. And so Lyndon Johnson asked Congress at the behest of Lyndon Johnson, Congress passed a law in 1964 called the Civil Rights Law of 1964. At that point in time, they shifted the whole focus from racism that was affecting black folk, that had black folk enslaved and Jim Crow segregated for 360 years. They switched it. And he set up a 1964 thing based on discrimination, not against black folk, which is immaterial because it was racism. Black folk don't suffer from discrimination, they suffer from racism. And so that law went into effect in 1964. And that set a platform. That set a platform for the four horses to come visit black folk. So the very next year they started with, they went into, again, they assembled all these different blacks to come to, in response to Martin Luther King's march in 1963. And say Martin Luther King called for what? He called for, we're gonna have a march on Washington. And we're going to Washington, we can all come together. But now the apocalypse had been visited upon him, the first horse. He came in, and what the Kennedy administration says, you can call all those blacks to Washington, D.C. if you want to. You can call them all to Washington. You can call it a million. You can call every black in America. You got 40-something million of you. When you come to Washington, D.C., here's the rule. Here's the gaming. You cannot have these people coming here talking about black issues because of the code and the gag order of 1836, which said you cannot, in a legislative manner, as a nation, address issues affecting black folk. And so what the Kennedy administration says is, come on to Washington with your march, Martin Luther King, if you want to. But remember this, you cannot bring them in here and talk about black issues and black people. And so he said, I'll let you come in here, but the first thing, but you can come on here only for one day. You got to get out of town before the sun goes down, because Washington, D.C. is a sundown town. You got to get out of town so they can spend one day in Washington, D.C. talking about issues. But you can't talk about black issues, so we got to neutralize this thing. And the scheme goes all the way back to the Constitution in 1789, which says keep the focus off of black folk and dilute it and water down. Use very broad, ambiguous terms. So what the Kennedy administration told Martin Luther King was that come to town if you want to, but we're going to make sure that it's diluted and watered down. And so they invited all the college campuses for white kids to come and join the Martin Luther King event in the March on Washington. Most people don't know that. That was structured, organized to impede and water down and dilute black folk having a major presence in Washington, D.C. Even though Washington, D.C. was known at that time as Chocolate City, because it had always been Chocolate City, a black city, 78 to almost 80% black. And so they invited all these college kids to come to Washington, D.C. Also, they said, what else can we do to water this thing down? This is a rule put out in Washington, D.C. before I got to the White House. They said, well, invite unions. So they hit all the major unions in the United States and told them to come to Washington, D.C. and join the Martin Luther King March. And so the unions came in and participated and supported it and put money into it and helped Martin Luther King pull the crowd together. So now you got Martin Luther King trying to address an issue that it should have been focused strictly on blacks. They've been watered down. Now we got white college kids, and now they got unions in America coming in. Then the third thing they did, they contacted all these women organizations and told them to participate and join and come in. And also some of the immigrant groups, and so y'all come in here and participate in this march. It's not a black march. We're gonna let you have a black march in Washington, D.C. So they watered the Martin Luther King March down where everybody, including the damn local dogs, would join in on it. And so that was not anything about black folk. So when Martin Luther King came here, he was forced to not talk about black folk because of the gag rule, which says you cannot bring up black issues. He had to water it down and say, I got a dream, and not about black people, but about all people, all people. And so, and that's what he got into social integration about, and they said also, and once you start dreaming about black folk, take the emphasis off and put it on all people. So Martin Luther King then started addressing discrimination, not racism, but discrimination. Then he moved from that and said, well, how else can they water it down? Don't talk about black folk being poor, talk about poverty in general. Poverty in general. Let's talk about eradicating poverty, not helping black folk who never had anything. And so the issue was not taking off of poor blacks, was to put on poverty for everybody. Then they switched it off again and diluted it further by pushing him and putting him into going to fight for the garbage collectors up in Tennessee. And then also talked about the Vietnam War. That's how he got into the Vietnam War, watered that down and diluted it to the fact he had to go talk about the Vietnam War. And then in the civil rights organizations, the NAACP, Urban League, and the Rainbow Coalition, they put out a big news spread in the newspapers endorsing, fighting, and getting involved in the Vietnam War to take the focus off of black folk intentionally. And so the FBI then sort of said something that where the FBI hadn't come in yet. That was intentionally to dilute and water that whole concept down and make sure that nothing was placed on black folk. And so when you hear people talking about how far we've come, that was the whole point. That was the first horse. It switched everything. So in 1965, Martin Luther King met with the Congress to say, what are we gonna do now? Here comes the red horse. Now all of a sudden, white folks started pushing back with the civil rights movement. So what do you have in the country? You had major violence in all these cities across the country. You had riots, you had race riots, and people and struggling. And you had people like George Wallace, the governor George Wallace of Alabama, saying, I'm a Democrat, but I'm totally against social integration. I'm a racist now, segregation forever. We're not gonna ever, so whites pushed back against the civil rights movement. That's why you had the violence. That's why Malcolm X got assassinated. That's why Martin Luther King got assassinated. That's why 3 or 4 other civil rights leaders got assassinated. You had bombings of churches. You had lynching went straight up in there. That's when the red horse came back, which I said is a pushback against anything to bring a crown. And they had Martin Luther King going around trying to be the crown of the white horse. And so he was supposed to be like Jesus coming. And that's why he's pushing a religious perspective as a white horse. But the red horse came in and pushed against him. That's why he got assassinated. And somebody's having a dream. He wasn't dreaming about black folk. He was dreaming about all people. And so nobody in the black community ever said, if Martin Luther King was so important during that period, where is the white Martin Luther King? Dr. Watkins, why after 360 years, another 100 years of simple segregation, and everybody talking about what Martin Luther King did for the society, why are all the white Martin Luther Kings? Where are the Indian Martin Luther Kings? Where are the Asian Martin Luther King? Where are the Arab Martin Luther Kings? Where are the gay Martin Luther Kings? What they did, they immortalized Martin Luther King, and because again, he talked about something that's really didn't make any sense. I simply again saying that here's the admonishment. Then I'm gonna stop and give a break before I go to finish it up. Is that he started saying what we need to do now is take the focus strictly off of race and off of skin color. Take the focus. This is what they put Martin Luther King up to. take the focus off of skin color. Even though they use skin color, they throw black folk into a ditch. They throw them into the cotton fields for 360 years in tobacco fields, be subordinated, exploited, misused, and lynched and castrated. They based it on skin color. And what Martin Luther King saying is this, that we should never, and don't instead of basing discrimination, racism on skin color, let's base it on the content and of the character. Now, anybody in his right mind would say that's impossible. You can't judge a person by the content of their character. Where are you gonna get the money and where you can get all these psychotherapists? Where you can get all these psychologists and psychiatrists to analyze every person, see what the character of their content of their character. Hell, you can't do that with one person in a business. They knew good and damn well you can't have 360-something million people in America, and they one of these damn white folks gonna throw them on a table on a cot and try to analyze the content of his character. Hell, that's a waste of time in playing games. So don't judge them based on the color of their skin, based on the content of their character. That's all bullshit. And they did it. And the society went for it. And every white person right now loves that saying. We ain't gonna base anything based on the content on skin color anymore. That's based on the content of their character. And so at that point in time, nothing has happened. They totally neutralized everything. They got to that red horse. And George Wallace pushed back, and so he got assassinated. He got shot right here in Laurel, Maryland. But the same thing, same time Martin Luther King all being. So I'll stop there before I get to the black horse and the white horse. I mean the pale horse. And we have to pick it up next week. And I'm gonna stop right there and give you a break. I might be talking too much, giving you too much information, and I don't want you to get lost and misled on this and raise whatever questions you want, because you got a lot of bright listeners across the country. This is extremely important. They understand that what's been going, that bullshit has been going on now ever since the 60s. And I started raising, I devoted 60 years of my life, even with governors and presidents, analyzing this stuff for them, explaining it, understanding it. And yet I got all these civil rights leaders don't know their butt from a hole in the ground, going around talking about how far we've come, we got social integration. This is all a game. I'm gonna stop right there because the cardinal rule in the upcoming election is that I told black folk, never play in a game if you don't understand the rules, you don't know what you can win and what you should be doing to play and win the game. And so they started voting on this coming up between Trump and Biden. Neither one are gonna do a damn thing for black folk. And black folk don't know the game. They don't know how to demand anything. They don't know how to keep things focused strictly on black folk and quit trying to be amorphic and talk about all people, everybody, all citizens, poor people, minorities, handicapped, crippled, deaf, dumb, everybody. That's why they're gonna lose. And this upcoming race between Trump and Biden, I don't care who wins. I don't have a dog in that fight. But the only thing I feel sorry for is my people that don't understand these issues, and they're gonna let a few black folk come out as leaders in the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and gonna use them again the way they use black folk all these years of voting. And because what Trump wants is I need 20% of the black vote, and Biden said, well, I need all 38 to 40% in the Democratic Party to win. And so we're going to fight over the weakest fool would carry the heaviest load, and we're going to make black folk carry the heaviest load either whether it's in the Democratic Party or Republican Party, and we're going to give them a damn thing because black people haven't got enough sense to stay focused on their own people and demand stuff strictly and solely for their own people. Anytime you started mentioning these other broad, ambiguous groups, get away from them. They started talking about on TV, so no, we ain't going for that as black folk. 460 years of being the stupidest horse pulling the heaviest load, we're not doing it anymore. But I'm gonna stop there before I get to the other two horses so you get an understanding of what I'm talking about.
All right, everybody who's watching, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2, and the Black History Reader. If you want to do a favor for your family, especially now while you're on quarantine, you might as well learn something and become better at whatever it is you want to become better at. So go to powernomics.com. You can also subscribe to his YouTube channel, and you can submit questions and things like that. And so if you go to powernomics.com, you can find his YouTube channel there. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Type a B1 in the chat if you are following this and you appreciate this. We are B1 in this place. That means we must be one, and we must put black people first. So that has two meanings. I want to make sure I shout out some people who donated on the chat. A lot of you have donated, so I'm gonna mention everybody's name, and I want to say thank you guys for supporting the platform so we can grow. We want to reach worldwide. You mentioned across the country, Dr. Anderson. We got people across the world. In fact, everybody who's from a country other than the U.S., raise your hand, say something in the chat, shout out what country that you're from. And then also, if you're from the U.S., shout out your city so everybody knows where you're at. So Zena Tate, Men's Rhea, Kathy Dean, George Jackson, Eric Donaldson, Mark H., Michael Ferguson, Errol Taylor, Nasir Dales Jr., or is that Dale S. Jr., sorry, Tracy Jackson. I want to say thank you very much for supporting the platform. Anybody who wants to support long-term to help us really grow, go to intelligentblackpeople.com. We'd love to have you as a patron to help the channel grow. That's intelligentblackpeople.com. I see Sweden in here. Okay, very nice. Wow, all the way from Sweden. That's very cool. And Mozambique, and so Brooklyn, and we got Orlando, all kinds of cities all across the place. So Dr. Anderson, let me go and ask you this question. Now I'm gonna mention. I want you guys to know this. I took a survey because I was curious to know what our people were thinking about the conversation about these vaccines. A lot of people are real suspicious of vaccines for obvious reasons, because you have a history there of, some medical trickery, everything from the Tuskegee experiment where they were injecting syphilis in Black people to all the other things they've done to us. For example, Henrietta Lacks, still her family's never been compensated for the multi-billion-dollar industry that was created off of her cells. So Dr. Anderson, when I did the survey, I think I asked a very basic question. I said, if there is if this virus is out here, if there is a vaccine, would you be willing to take the vaccine? And I think about 98% of the Black people on the platform said no. A lot of them said hell no, F no. Like they were like hell to the no. Like, I mean, just no across the board. So Dr. Anderson, can you give a historical context of where the distrust of the medical industry comes from for Black folks? You're a history expert, so I'm sure you've run across numerous examples of why Black folks have a hard time trusting a vaccine or anything that comes from the American government and the American medical system. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it goes back to slavery. As a matter of fact, during slavery, most experiments was done on Black people during slavery. As a matter of fact, even the white medical schools, they place a great deal of value even on cadavers, on corpse. And then when they want to do some experiments and teach the kids having bodies to work on, they didn't go get white bodies out of cemeteries and graveyards because they felt a white body was sacred. They would go to the Black cemeteries and get Black bodies and cut them up as cadavers so that white folk could study the parts of Black folks. And that's where it came from. They started to experiment on Black folk bodies first during slavery. That's why Black bodies became very sacred, and people started saying, stop them from using Black bodies. That stayed pretty true for the longest, and even that was way before the experiments with syphilis and stuff, with experiments on Blacks. They also went into the prison and started experimenting with Blacks, using Black prisoners to test various drugs on, and that was very popular too. Even always during the early segregation days, they do experiment on Blacks who were alive to test drugs on them, and in the latter part, even up to the point up to the civil rights movement, they set up specials. They wired specials in places in the United States to where they, like Detroit, Michigan, as an example. You had salt mines in Detroit, Michigan, under the ground. Did you know that?
You said salt mines?
Salt mines. That's not the salt they sprinkle on the street to melt the snow. And so they went in there and rebuilt those things under the ground in Detroit, Michigan, to be a place to store Black folk. And you ever heard of the King Alfred Plan?
No.
The King Alfred Plan is the same thing. So they could catch Black folk. When Black folks started pushing back, we got to the point about the Black Horseman. We didn't get to the Black Horseman yet. The Black Horseman, Blacks started pushing back with things like the Black Panthers and other kind of civil rights sort of stuff, and the New Liberation Party for Blacks. They started pushing back. They used to come out a thing called the King Alfred Plan. but they would identify special places that be able to imprison and store black for experimental purposes in the United States, outside of Atlanta, Georgia. There's special places there at Belle Isle, between Canada and Detroit, where they're gonna fence it in. They even went and wired the schools, where they can use schools to be able to store black folk in case of riots. So when those riots broke out in the 1960s, late 1960s, they're gonna use these various places to incarcerate black folk in large groups under the ground, or in prisons, or schools, or in woods. And FEMA was going to be, they're going to use FEMA as one of the driving agency that had all these parks and grounds where they could store black folk and cordon black folk off. And they would do these experiments. In Detroit, Michigan, they had helicopters that were going around. They could spray stuff in the black neighborhood, see how blacks reacted to various things at night when they sprayed these various kind of gases and incense and things into the black neighborhoods, how many blacks would be affected by it. And then when they were going to be, they would go in places like in the southern areas. Let's take in tobacco areas, when they had to dump the residue from old, from the residue from cigarettes companies are making tobacco, making chewing tobacco and cigarettes. But the residue, the dust, which they had no use for, they would go over into black neighborhoods and dump all the residue from cigarettes and dust and powder into the black neighborhoods, then set it on fire to burn. But all that smoke and everything went into the black neighborhoods. They built all the incinerators for garbage put up in the black neighborhoods. And like in Florida, same thing with Northern, I can't think of the company now, that produces most of your toilet paper and boards. They dumped all the residue into black neighborhoods. Blacks came up with all kind of illnesses and diseases by the stuff that being dumped. All the military stuff that was coming back from World War II, like the life rafts and life vests, the rubber, they're called neoprene rubber. They would grind all that stuff up. They had to dump that place for it to deteriorate. So they go into the black neighborhood and find vacant lots and dump all this used rubber and trash and stuff in the black neighborhoods, and then try to bury it there along with the dust from the factories, like or R.J. Reynolds would dump all that trash and stuff for tobacco into the black neighborhoods. I can go on and on, but in Detroit, Michigan, they would just fly over and dump it from helicopters to see how blacks reacted to it. So what happened in these large metropolitan areas, as I said, that's where 70% of all the blacks live. Black folks started getting all kind of breathing problems. That's why you find some of these black kids with asthma living, because 70% of the black folk live in these large metropolitan areas. That's why they wind up with a lot of asthma. And so now with this virus going around, now this coronavirus going around, and black folks show up and they got these internal illnesses already from breathing problems. They're prime suspects to contract the virus and get it wiped off the face of the earth. The game goes on and on, but you don't have any black. You have not one black organization except the Harvest Institute and those books I put out, those 5 books trying to inform black folks. It says, get your minds open. And I said, and the whole point of my 5 books is saying this to black folk: a prepared mind and a prepared community has a chance to be able to survive and prosper. If you haven't got those 2 things, you haven't got a snowball's chance. The game is up and going. And they thought, well, when things come up after they cure the virus, blacks will be okay. No, you're not. You're not going to change your condition. You've been on the bottom, underneath the society and outside of it for 460 years. Not just because the new businesses come on stream, not going to help you. You don't have any businesses. You don't produce anything. And the last point about it with the virus now is what's going to happen is that you're going to start having shortages in the country. Not only of businesses, but next thing coming up, and I even wrote that in one of my Harvest Institute, let them know at the bottom. You can't see it here, but right here at the bottom, the whole thing is another about a 19-page story. Water shortages. We're going to reach a tipping point along with food shortages. You're going to have water shortages and food shortages now coming up when this virus is over. Water is going to become a premium. I told black folk a long time ago, in 1970, started to being able to own and control water. And if Dr. Anderson, you're wrong because, why are we going to buy water? Water is free. No, it's not. I said, water is going to become very expensive. I said, start learning how to get into the water business, owning and controlling water. And that was in 1990. By 1999, guess what? That water had become so expensive that water was costing 4 times what gasoline costs per gallon. You go in and buy a little small bottle of water, about a pint of water, costs a damn $1. A pint of gas don't cost no damn $1. See, a gallon, that's 4 times more expensive than gasoline. I said, learn how to own and control water, build water businesses, go into the bottled water business and control it. They ignored it. Now, when water become that critically important, people are going to start having trouble getting clean water. Like it's going to have it right now. 20 to 5% of all the people on the earth right now are suffering from water shortages. They can't get water, can't get clean water any place on earth right now. 20% of the world right now, 25% is suffering from lack of water. And guess what? If you have a shortage of lack of water, next thing going to come up is going to be a short of food. That's coming. You can't get food right now in all these black neighborhoods. They're going to be able to get food. You don't produce anything. Where are you going to get? How are you going to feed and clothe your people and give them water and food, and you don't own and control the damn thing? And half the people want you out of the world. 88% of the people right now, white people right now, still have a despised feeling about black folk. And it was 98% during slavery. Now it went down to 88%. 63 to 64% of all the immigrants coming to this country do not like black folk. Nobody is coming to America to get along with black folk. You have no friends any place on this earth. Everybody wants to use you and exploit you. And when the best way to do it is by controlling water and food, that's coming. And you talk about, well, doctor, we can order it online. You won't be able to order online. Downstream, if upstream production ends with water and food, downstream delivery is going to get wiped out. Everybody right now in Chicago sitting on the phone in the home, get on the phone, calling, saying, telling Amazon, send me this, send me this, send me that. The delivery service is going to fold up. One thing that God gave me when I was born, the vision to be able to tell black folk in advance. That's why I devoted my whole life trying to educate them that you're going to have delivery shortages pretty soon. UPS, FedEx, and the rest of these places, they're not going to be able to deliver stuff to you. They're going to be overwhelmed. They're reaching a tipping point. Pretty soon you're going to have shortages in delivering stuff. Why? Because everybody's sitting on the telephone at home calling saying, bring me some groceries, bring me some clothes, bring me this, bring me some nails and tools, bring me something to fix my toilet. That's going to end. They cannot deliver all that stuff. They cannot make all those residential deliveries every day and stay in business. Your big company's going to go out, they're going to deliver service going to fail. And you don't even control and own any delivery services. I know that sounds bad, but I'm giving you the stuff today, Dr. Watkins, but that's the long and the short of it. And that's why every one of my books addressed all these issues, laid it out for them, and saying, here are your problems. Black labor, white wealth. It's not social integration, what you own and control. You don't own and control a damn thing. And you got major organizations, which we'll talk about when we get to the pale horse. And so the 4 things that hurt black folk: social integration, massive human migration from country to country. And the 3rd one is called technology. And the 4th one is globalization. They moved all these businesses and industries out of the United States and moved them abroad into Mexico and to Europe. And right now, all this disease is not coming from Asia, it's coming from Europe. The reason New York is so overloaded with contracts with viruses and disease and death is because the people we're coming from China, they're coming from Europe. Because our immigration policies have an open door policy. I've been trying to tell black folk that immigration was the second thing that Congress did in 1789. Immigration is against black folk. They're going to bury you with open door policies on immigration. And the Democratic Party is going to keep that door open so that black folk can be buried. 38 to 40% of the Democratic Party is black. The Democratic Party is not going to promise you a damn thing. They never have. No political candidate ever promised and delivered anything to black folk. The Republican Party hasn't delivered a damn thing to you. Yet all these blacks are so happy to run and say, I'm going to vote for Biden. I'm going to vote for Trump. And neither one of them is going to promise you a damn thing. Please, please, don't let my life be in vain. I put 60 years in trying to help black folk. I devoted my entire life trying to re-educate them and put out those 5 books: Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics, Dirty Little Secrets, and the Black History Reader, saying if you read these things, you have a better understanding, they have a prepared mind and a prepared community. You cannot survive without a community or a broad sense of community. And so I'm going to stop there because our time is running short.
Wow. Well, I'll say this, Dr. Anderson. Everything you heard was loud and clear. Everybody type a yes in the chat to let Dr. Anderson know that you heard him. You heard it loud and clear, and also you appreciate him giving you this perspective that is different from anything you're hearing anywhere else. I'll tell you what, I personally you know, when I read Black Labor, White Wealth, that was the first of your books that I ever read. You know, I know that book changed my life, and I'd already met you in 2006 in Louisville, actually, my home city, Louisville, Kentucky, at a family conference. And I remember, and you were the first person that actually told me that I thought that at that time that it was bad to be seen as radical. If you're a black scholar, you know, that radical was a derogatory term. And you said, no, you want to be radical. You know, it's required. You must be radical if you want to make a difference. And that stuck with me. And so I'll tell you what, I'm very happy that you're here. And everybody else, I see a lot of the yeses. I see Monique and Daisy and Judy and Travanta, Titi and Zena. Everybody appreciates you. And also, I hope you all, if you feel compelled to do so, I hope you will take a stop by Powernomics.com and at least take a look and see what Dr. Anderson has in place. You know, this is our educational system. The regular educational system ain't got nothing for you. You know this. I don't have to explain this to you. You have your own reasons for having issues with the public schools. You have your own reasons to have issues with the current economic system that you're tied into. Well, this quarantine is not just a disease quarantine. I think it is a social psychological quarantine. It's quarantine from white supremacy. And so I encourage you to take advantage of this quarantine opportunity and then get over that addiction that you have to white supremacy, whether it's through your job or through the school system you send your kids to, and look for the other options that are out there. You got black scholars right here, like Dr. Anderson, right there available online that will educate you better than any professor at any university, even the one that charged you $100,000 and kept you in debt for life. This man is out here, he's teaching, he's got great information. His books are extraordinary, and I hope you guys will take a look. The URL is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. And of course, I told all of you all that I really want everybody investing. So if you want to learn how to invest for free, you can go. I got a free training at firstshareofstock.com. That's firstshareofstock.com. So somebody please type in both of those URLs. And these are resources that are either free or low cost that you can take a look at that will make a much bigger difference for you than whatever it was that you learned somewhere else. Dr. Anderson, I want to say thank you. I'm gonna let you get the last word before we head on out. Anything else on your mind before we go?
Yes, and thanks again for pushing the books. That's tremendously important, and I'm glad you did that. And but also it ties in what I said a few minutes ago. But our delivery system, online delivery system, getting ready to collapse. That's going to collapse. Right now, all those the UPS and FedEx are not going to be able to go to everybody's house every day, dropping off everything they want. The system's going to be overwhelmed with all these residentials. Right now, at about 367 million people in the United States. That means on appropriate terms, that means you might have about 157 million homes. You cannot send out all these packages every day that they're buying, shopping to 50 million homes every day and have it delivered. It ain't gonna happen. The system is gonna collapse. And what I'm saying to back up your point is that if they're gonna understand these issues and have some clarity about it, they need to try to get these books in as fast as they can because that system will collapse. We send our books out from the Powernomics Corporation through the UPS that deliver it from home to home. And those of that system collapse, they're never gonna be able to get these damn books. So in following up on your admonishment to get out, for them to get them, buy them and read them, they better do it very quickly. And what I'm gonna do between now and the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm gonna see if they respond the way they usually do to your admonishments. Get these books in, get them in fast. The delivery system is gonna collapse downstream, but upstream, the production system is gonna collapse. Right now, black folk are 0 producers and 100% consumers. That system is gonna collapse. Who's gonna produce anything for black folk? They're gonna be the last one to get the food, the water, and medicine, and anything else. They have no clinics, no hospitals, and no paraphernalia, no drug stores. It's gonna collapse. And so in downstream, if you are gonna sit at home and do it on the telephone, that delivery system is gonna collapse. But these books, if you're sitting at home right now, get on the phone today and go on the website and order the Powernomics Library Pack for $99 and get those books and start reading them. And remember what I said, a prepared mind helps you build a prepared community, then you got a chance of prospering and competing. You can't do it otherwise. Civil rights and social integration and simply watching football games and basketball games is not gonna cut it. Nobody cares about how far, what you can produce running up with a damn ball. You're producing sweat and nobody's buying the damn sweat, and sweat cannot keep your butt alive. So tell them to get those books as fast as they can. That way we got some unity. We got a platform we can communicate through what I call a sense of community. Once they get an understanding, then people like you and your schools and stuff, you can communicate with them. You'll all be on common ground with a common understanding of the nature of the problems that Black folk that are confronting Black folk. But without those books, there are no other books that can give you give you this information I'm giving you. I'm giving this information based on all my years of 60 years in all levels of government, from the highest levels you can get with presidents, with governors, run their campaign, with attorney generals, with congressional people, state legislators and mayors. I was there with them and advising them on how to do it, how to work in this system. And so if they don't get the information now and get those books, I feel sorry for them, because right now they're not gonna be able to contact, and it's gonna be hard for people like you who's dedicated and committed to try to educate our people. You won't be on the same ground. And I know you buy these books and you give away a lot of these books because of the charitableness in your heart. You give away these books. When you buy them, you buy cases of them. And people who roll in your classes, you give them free books. I know that. That's because you got a good heart and a good mind and a commitment to your people. And but I'm not going to beg Black folks to get the understanding. When the system collapses, there's nothing upstream producing, and downstream it's going to collapse, nothing delivered. You're in a world hurt. That's why you're going to die 6 times faster and be sicker 6 times worse than whites in another group in this country.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've given away a lot of stuff for free, but I'll also challenge everybody in here to understand when I say that, you can't run a business on free. You can't employ Black people on free. And also I want to make sure people understand that, we got 1.3 trillion a year that we spend as a community. And there are lots of things we spend money on that won't give you 1/1000th of the value that you'll get from what Dr. Anderson offers you. So I encourage you all, sure, we give you lots of stuff for free. Well, you sit here and listen to this conversation is free. It's better than any class you ever took in college, but the white university probably got thousands of dollars before they let you sit in the class. This is free. But I encourage you to be very conscious and thoughtful of what you do with your money. And so when I come to you and I say, hey, look, yeah, it could be free. This could be free, but I hope you'll consider paying for that. It's not because somebody's saying, oh, let's just get everybody's money. It's because that's how you build an organization. That's how you build a company. That's how you build a movement. That's how you employ people. That's how you make things happen. Because right now we're employing lots of people. Black people are one of the biggest employers in America. The only problem is you are employing people who don't look like you. When you go spend money at McDonald's, you're employing McDonald's employees. When you go spend money at Applebee's, you're employing people for them, right? So what we're saying is, and I do this in my own life. I practice what I preach on this. When I have a Black business owner, I meet Black business owners everywhere all the time. When I go around the country, they always offer me their stuff for free. Usually, if I have money in my wallet, I'll pull money out and I will buy it anyway, because I know you can't run that business for free. Nothing is free. And I have to repeat that because I think that when Dr. Anderson, when you were talking about all the other influences that come into the community, when you talk about the civil rights movement, you have the socialist and communist organizations, I think, that sort of wanted to lump Blackness in with all the other stuff they had going on, like whether it was feminism, labor rights, or whatever, which are fine issues, but that was not Black stuff. That was not our stuff. I find that another thing that's happened is that we've been trained to see ourselves as a charity case. So what Black folks will do, and I want to point this out, I want you all to just process this for a minute, hear me out on this, is Black folks will expect to pay money for a product being sold by a white man, but will expect a free service from a Black man. So you'll go and you'll give your money to a white business and won't expect anything free, because they made it clear, we don't care nothing about you, we just want your money. But a Black man like Dr. Anderson, when he comes along and says, I care about you, that's why I created this product for you, you'll say, well, if you really care about me, you'll give it to me for free. Well, I'm sorry, but you're not a charity case. Again, now if you're destitute and completely broken, you haven't given any money to white folks, then fine, I'll give you lots of free stuff. But a lot of y'all, 99% of y'all, will spend money in the white economy. So I'm just saying to everybody in here that gets what I'm saying, spend some damn money in the Black economy too. show at least a fraction of the same love to black business owners as you show to white business owners. Because right now we got it real backwards and real twisted. Okay, so that's the point I wanted to make. And Dr. Anderson, I got a meeting I'm late for, so I hope you're okay with me jumping off of here. But
I'm gonna jump off and on what you're saying. Dr. Ken Harris in Detroit, Michigan, he's now organized the Black Business League across America. He's now got about 365 black small businesses coming on stream, and I'm one of the things I support. So we're gonna have some black businesses that we can survive with a prepared mind and prepared communities. Build these communities, support people like Dr. Ken Harris from Detroit, Michigan, and the Black Business League that's developing across America. We're gonna have our own products to sell in those businesses.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you guys very much for your time.
Run to your meeting.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's great to see you, Dr. Anderson. I'll see you next week, hopefully. I hope you.
Thank you, buddy. You take care now.
All right. Take care of yourself. All right, everybody. Have a good day. Love you, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr.